So you and Phil Rucker have written this book, A Very Stable Genius. And before we even get into the details in the book, which is a fascinating look at the Trump presidency and the president himself, why did you choose to write this book?
The truth is, Phil and I have been covering this presidency for 3 years. Phil longer because he was covering the campaign. And it felt to us, and I think to everyone around us, like bullets and chyrons and shrapnel and scandals were flying past our ears every hour, every day. And we would get done with the story breathlessly at the end of the day and have forgotten what had happened the previous day. And the next day there'd be something just as dramatic and almost shocking to replace what we had just finished. So we just decided we're going to hit the pause button. We're going to try to figure out about this history that's unfolding right in front of our eyes. It's a big deal. It's a unique presidency like we've never seen. And what we wanted to do was go deeper into those moments that we were just scratching the surface of in real time and make sense of this presidency, understand what makes Donald Trump tick.
You described this meeting in July of 2017 in what's called the tank at the Pentagon, during which military leaders and President Trump's national security team, who were alarmed by what you write are the gaping holes in the president's knowledge of history and the alliances forged in the wake of World War II, tried to give him a lesson. And they did that by saying, look, let's do this presentation and let's try to fill those gaps. How did that meeting go and how did it end?
It went about as sideways as a meeting could go. You know, you've always walked into a meeting, you're like, this does not bode well. This was like a hurricane about to unleash. The intentions were so good. Jim Mattis, Secretary of Defense, Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, Gary Cohn, National Economic Advisor, the senior-most people advising the president, kept having these same arguments with the president in the preceding months. Arguments over where the troops are, where our bases are located, why we have these trade agreements with different countries. And the arguments were always the same, always truly like vitriolic, the president furious. They wanted to basically explain to him why these things are good for America, why they let you and me go to bed each night and feel safe when we lay our heads down. As they walk him through this, though, this meeting in this revered room, the tank, a sacred room in the Pentagon, where decisions of war and peace have been made for centuries, as they walk him through the issues of bases, forward troop deployments, he is not having this schoolhouse rock vibe. And he starts to bellow and bark and tell them that they're losers, that the Afghanistan war is a loser. He starts telling them about how these other countries are ripping us off, how they are arrears, which is not really true, in their rent to the United States. He starts telling his senior flag officers, including Secretary of Defense Jim Mattis, Mad Dog Mattis, who has risked his life God knows how many times, calls them dopes and babies and losers. And finally, he says something in a fit of anger that many of these people promised each other they would never repeat again, because to them it was worse than any curse word. He said, I would never go to war with you people. There is a woman who starts to cry. There is a Vice President Pence who does nothing, says nothing. People in the room think he looks like a wax figure. Rex Tillerson finally looking over several times, according to witnesses in the room, at Mattis, hoping Mattis will stand up and say something. Tillerson has had enough. He realizes all these guys can't speak back to their commander-in-chief. And he says, Mr. President, you're wrong. Stop. You are absolutely dead wrong. None of that is true. And at the end of the meeting, people part. And in the hallway, Tillerson finally lets down his guard and says, that man's an effing moron.
In addition to those senior level staff members and military officials, there were also other members of the military, men and women, seated around, I guess, in this tank, right? And they're hearing, and I'm assuming some of them had fought in Afghanistan and some of them had lost their comrades in Afghanistan. And were you able to ascertain from your sources whether anybody got a sense of how they felt listening to the commander-in-chief call them losers?
We spoke with many people that were in this room, and I don't want to identify the ones who said X, Y, and Z, but I remember with a lot of sadness 2 people describing their own losses in their family and being despondent that he was sort of kicking dirt essentially on the graves of people that those individuals knew well and loved. And I remember as well one person saying that they could sense in the room a kind of physical anger that nobody could express. And there were people shuffling their papers and looking in their briefcases almost as if they were trying to will themselves out of this room to be silent objectors or noisy objectors, but they couldn't.
Yeah, they could not. Wow. One of the things that you focus on in the book is how important loyalty is to this president. But I think when you hear that word, it means something to someone and it means something else to another person. What does it mean to President Trump, as you've learned it through your reporting?
To President Trump, loyalty means me first above anything else. And it's interesting because in the reporting for this book, there are a couple of moments where different people try to remind their crew, their troops, their bureaucrats, whatever the entity is that they supervise, they try to remind them, we didn't swear an oath to a Republican Party or a Democratic Party. We didn't swear an oath to a particular president. We swore an oath to the Constitution. John Kelly, as Secretary of Homeland Security and also as Chief of Staff, when he comes into the job of Chief of Staff, he gathers a group around him in the Executive Office building, a beautiful, beautiful Beaux Art building, and tries to explain to them that's what they swore the oath to. But to Donald Trump, it isn't that. And there is another scene in the book where he is, the president, fuming at the television. It's never been reported before, but he's furious in January of 2018 that there is this memorandum that he feels should be released by the Justice Department, and the Justice Department is resisting doing this because it contains classified information and sources and methods about how the United States spies on people. And he feels this memo is going to make him look great and make the investigation of his campaign look terrible. So he wants it declassified and he wants it released. He is cursing at the television, cursing at his chief of staff on the phone, saying, this is my effing Justice Department. This is the Trump Justice Department. Why can't they release this thing that's going to help me? Well, the Justice Department, as everyone in America who's above 18 knows, has blinders on to politics. It's blind justice. It's about a pillar of our country which says it's not about party, it's not about fear or favor. It's a Justice Department that makes decisions based on what's right, what the rule of the law is, and in this case, keeping our classified secrets. It's just another moment where loyalty to Trump is loyalty to Trump above all else.
Carol Leonnig, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you for this interview.
Congratulations to you and Phil.
Oh, thank you.